What's up everyone, welcome back. Today I'm doing my take on a Souvlaki pita, a dish that usually requires some special equipment, but better suited to the home cook. My version is a little traditional, a little not, but I guarantee it's super delicious, so stick with me and I'll show you how I do it. The first step is to prep my herbs, and we're gonna need a lot of them. Here I have roughly equal parts mint, basil, and parsley, maybe just a little bit more parsley than the other two. I'll take a few minutes to get all the leaves off the stems and throw them all into my salad spinner that I have sitting next to me. It's hard to have too many herbs for this, so you're best off just really going for it. You can also supplement with things like cilantro or fresh oregano. Once I have all those picked, I'll give them a quick wash and a spin and throw them into the jar of my blender. Then I'll add a couple pinches of kosher salt, some black pepper, and even though I don't have it fresh, I will add some dried oregano. Then that gets followed up by a whole bunch of olive oil. I think I added about 1/4 cup here. And then I need some acid, which will come in the form of lemon juice. But before I juice, I'm going to zest one of these and add that, and then I'll go ahead and add the juice from this lemon, plus the juice from one more. Now with everything in, I'm going to blend this up, and I'll scrape the inside down every once in a while, keeping an eye on the texture in there. There needs to be enough liquid to make sure this turns into a saucy, marinade-y consistency, so don't be afraid to add a little water if you need to. You don't want to add too much, but if you add just a little at a time until it blends up nicely, you should be good to go. That looks good to me there, so I'll pour about half of it into this metal bowl here, and then these two halves are going to diverge a bit. The part that is in the bowl is going to be the marinade for my chicken, so I'm going to add a couple more pinches of kosher salt, since it's going to have a lot more mass to season in a minute, and then I'll grate in a couple cloves of garlic. Then goes all of my chicken, which for today is going to be about 2.5 pounds of boneless, skinless chicken thighs. You can do breast here if you want. It'll still be good, but it will come out a little bit drier. Chicken thighs are just easier and more forgiving, so that's what I'm going with today. Once I get all that thoroughly mixed up, it'll go in the fridge for at least a couple hours and up to overnight. Now for the rest of this that's still in the blender, I'm going to turn it into an herby, salsa verde, chimichurri type of thing. I'm going to chunk up a serrano pepper and throw it in with the leftover slurry, whiz that up until it's nice and broken down, and that's it. That'll bring a ton of freshness and brightness later. Okay, now I have a couple hours to kill before my chicken has marinated properly, so I'm going to prep a couple more things to go on my pita. The first topping is one I've used on the channel a bunch of times already, but I don't think I've ever actually shown my recipe or technique for them. Pickled red onions. I've never filmed it because 1, everybody's got a pickled red onion video these days, and 2, my method is so dumbed down that I feel like it hardly even qualifies as a recipe. But hopefully this will show you that even in its most simple, imprecise form, this still makes for one of the best, most versatile condiments. The first thing I'll do is grab the vessel I'll be doing my pickling in, which for me today will be this Tupperware. My brine is going to be 50-50 water and distilled white vinegar, so I'll first start by filling this about 1/3 of the way with vinegar, and then another 1/3 of the way with water. This way I know I'll have enough liquid to submerge everything while still leaving room for the onions later. Once I get that very roughly measured out, I'll pour it all into a small saucepan and add a couple big pinches of kosher salt. If you want to add a little sugar, you should do that here as well, but I prefer mine without the additional sweetness. That goes on high heat, and while it comes up to a simmer, I'll break down this onion. I've got 1 medium red onion here, but the amount of onion is up to you as long as you have enough pickling liquid. I'll slice this up just like I would any onion, cut it in half, take the top, bottom, and outside off, and then slice it into thin strips going from pole to pole. I'm not being too precise here, but I'm aiming for somewhere between 1/4 and 1/2 inch thick. I used to take my time separating all the layers from one another until I realized I can throw these all into my Tupperware, snap the lid on, and just give it a good shake. You may have to spot check a few to make sure everything comes apart, but this will get you 90% of the way there. Once my liquid is at a bare simmer, it's time to pour it over the onions. Heating up the brine helps dissolve the salt, of course, but will also cook the onions just a tiny bit, which will help tame their raw harshness. Now I'll let that hang out on the counter for about an hour until it cools down a bit, and then I'll throw it in the fridge for later. And that's really it. Super easy and a perfect condiment that's good on just about everything. The next adornment I'm gonna prep is gonna be toum. If you've never had it, toum is a really light and fluffy garlic spread made traditionally by emulsifying lots of garlic, lemon juice, and oil. I'm gonna cheat a little and add another ingredient today, but we'll get back to that. It's similar to a garlic mayonnaise or aioli, but it's fluffier and has this almost melt in your mouth quality. It's like the angel food cake of aiolis. It all starts with a bunch of garlic. I have about half a head here that I'll peel and grate on the microplane. Breaking this down on the microplane will give it a head start and make it easier to emulsify with the oil later. If you don't have a microplane, you can do this in a mortar and pestle, or you can just chop it finely on your board and then sprinkle a little bit of kosher salt on it for abrasiveness and then mash it up with the side of your knife. Once I'm done with the garlic, I'll add the juice of half a lemon for now, there will be more later, some salt, and then 1 egg white. This is the part where I said I was going to cheat. Eggs are not traditionally used in this, and you can achieve the same fluffy emulsification without it, but that's much easier to pull off when you're working with a bigger quantity and you can use something like a food processor. I don't want to make a gallon of Toum, I just want like a cup or so. So the egg white adds mass and emulsifying power up front without locking you into making so much that it would inevitably go bad in the fridge. Now, as for the leftover yolk, save it. You can make some extra rich scrambled eggs, work it into a custard, plop it raw on top of a bowl of rice, whatever you do, just don't waste it. So now with all that in the measuring cup, I'll hit it with my stick blender. Once it looks homogeneous, I'll start adding my oil. At first, it's going to look like nothing is happening. I actually thought I broke this one at first, but be patient and eventually you will add enough oil that it'll hit a critical point and the emulsion will noticeably start thickening up. Once the emulsion catches, I'll go back and forth, adding half a lemon's worth of juice and about a third of a cup of oil at a time until I've added 2 lemons worth of juice and probably close to a cup and a half of oil. I know that math doesn't add up, but it's all approximate. Just be somewhere in that ballpark and you should be good. In the end, what you should have is something that's intensely garlicky, but is also light as a cloud and melts like cotton candy as soon as it hits your tongue. Okay, with all the prep done now, let's jump a couple hours into the future. I'm ready to start cooking my chicken, so I've got a sheet pan that I've greased very lightly, probably unnecessary, but I like to have a little bit of insurance there anyways, and I'll lay all my thighs out, making sure nothing is overlapping. Normally for souvlaki, you would cook this on skewers over an open flame, and the best way I know to simulate that environment is to do these under the broiler. I've got mine set to high, and these are going to take about 20 to 25 minutes, but I'll check them every 5 minutes or so to move things around and flip them so they get an even color. While the chicken broils, I'll prep the last few things for my pita. There's a lot going on with this thing already, so while there's an endless number of options to choose from, I'll keep it simple. I'll slice up some cucumbers. I've got these little mini guys today, but whatever cucumber you have will work. And then I'll sliver up some of these cherry tomatoes. Again, use whatever tomatoes you like, but the smaller ones tend to be of higher quality, at least at the supermarkets I frequent. Then I just have some feta that I'll crumble up, and that's going to be it for the toppings. For the pita itself, you could go all out and make your own, but I'm just using store-bought today. I'll heat these up just like I would a corn tortilla. Dry pan over high heat, a minute or so on each side, and then I'll wrap them up in a clean kitchen towel to steam so they're nice and pliable. After about 20 minutes, my chicken is looking nice and browned, with even a slight bit of charring around the edges. You could temp these if you want. Generally, you want thighs to get up to at least 175 or 180 Fahrenheit, but chances are if they look like this, they're done. I'm going to slice those up against the grain. These are tender enough to where it doesn't really matter that much, but I'll do it anyways. I like to go relatively thin here, maybe around ½ an inch, but don't worry about being super precise here. Just break it down into bites that seem like they would be comfortable to eat. Now, check out the sheet tray here. All that caramelized fat and juice, that's all great flavor, so I'm going to scrape all that up and pour it in over my meat. Whenever you have some accumulated juices or brown bits or fat in your pan, try not to waste that stuff. There's always so much good flavor there, and it will instantly improve your home cooking every time. Alright, I'm finally ready to build. On one nicely warmed pita, I'll start with a layer of Toum. Use as much as you want, but it's pretty powerful, so try not to go too overboard. And then some of my souvlaki, a swipe of that salsa verde from earlier, cucumber, tomatoes, feta, and a few pickled onions. And that, everyone, is a truly perfect bite of food in my opinion. If I went to a restaurant and got this, I would be psyched. I would think, this is a very good restaurant and I would like to come back here. My point is, I think I'm pretty good at making good food, but this one is special. I really hope you try it sometime, and if you do, please let me know how it goes. Thanks.